day for the state of Connecticut. We have an excellent bill crafted with collaboration and centering on equity and communities of color in our state as we produced a system of legalization that is just and equitable. There is a certain irony in the fact that the state Senate passed the final version of this bill 50 years to the day when President Nixon declared a war on drugs and really a war on people of color in our country. So this bill will address those terrible tragedies and inequities and create a national benchmark of equity in legalization going forward, crafted to repair the wounds left by the war on drugs in communities of color in Connecticut. Other states legalized marijuana before Connecticut, but we are leading the way in legalization with a laser focus on equity. This bill and this session is testament to Governor Lamont's leadership. Together, we have taken on some very big challenges and done big things in our land of steady habits, whether it's sports betting, paid family leave, $15 an hour minimum wage, and now equity-grounded legalization of recreational cannabis. Our administration has tackled some generational challenges in our state. So I want to thank the governor for his leadership, and we're going to hear from him in a minute, but we couldn't have done this work without the leadership and without collaboration with our incredible legislative partners. And it's my honor to first introduce the President of the State Senate, Marty Looney.
Thank you, Madam Lieutenant Governor. This was indeed a session of great achievement. Not only the cannabis bill, which had been pending for years, and which we in the Senate felt like it was Groundhog Day, doing the bill over and over and over, but in addition to that, the gaming bill had also been pending for a long time. Reform and change to the bottle bill had also been pending and discussed for a long time. We created a new, more equitable system for the payment in lieu of taxes system by having a three-tiered system, taking need into account, did away with the welfare liens that would reach back and injure people in trying to sell their property later in life. There were a number of significant initiatives that will make life better for the people of the state of Connecticut. And certainly the cannabis bill, I think it was important that we had the benefit of having looked at the experience in other states. And our focus was not just on creating a revenue stream, but on addressing equity issues, on looking at the communities who had been most harmed by the aggressive enforcement of the marijuana laws over the last 50 years or more, and the injustices that had occurred, and the number of people who had their lives permanently blighted by minor marijuana charges and convictions. So our bill was more complex, more nuanced, and I think it will be a model for other states that will look to adopt it going forward. So it's great to be here with the governor today, who provided steadfast leadership on that, and with the lieutenant governor and my colleagues in the General Assembly. It's a proud moment for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Looney, and I'm going to invite up Speaker Ritter and Majority Leader Rojas, who are going to come up together.
Yes, we are. Come on, Jay. Thank you, Governor. I appreciate that, and I'll turn it over to the Majority Leader in a second. I want to thank everybody who's with me, the Senate President. Sorry you had to vote 3 times, but you certainly knew the bill well by that point. No one can deny that. Chairman D'Agostino, who you'll hear from, the co-chairs of the Judiciary Committee, Representative Stastrom, Senator Winfield, and obviously the Governor and Lieutenant Governor, and all the staff that was involved in the negotiation of this bill. You know, as Marty alluded to, in many ways, this will go down, in my opinion, as an historic session. Marty mentioned some of the things that happened. I look at the Judiciary Committee behind us. How many bills have we talked about for 3 or 4 years that came to fruition? I could talk about clean slate, prison gerrymandering, and the criminal justice reforms that were done. Marty mentioned the aid to municipalities for the first time in a rethinking pilot. None of those bills in isolation makes it a historic session, but all those things coupled together, I really think people will look back and say a lot happened. But it's a good reminder to everybody in this building that timing matters too. Every time I meet a young person who's 21 years old who thinks they're going to be president of the United States, I remind them that politics is often a little bit of luck and timing. And the combination of those two things and hard work can lead to good results. Well, elections have consequences, and elections lead to results, but it takes the right combination of factors. A governor who is supportive, a Senate that can work with the House, co-chairs that work well together. You couple that with the laser-like focus that a handful of legislators put with staff on this bill, and you get a really good combination. So from the House, I thank the chairs who worked on it earlier, but I really want to give a special thanks to our Majority Leader, who spent an inordinate amount of time putting this bill together, weeks and weeks, and it's that combination of factors that makes great legislation happen. Anybody in this building can propose a bill. It's easy. You get a piece of paper and you say, this is the bill I want. The true talented legislators are the ones who pass bills, and that's why I'm proud to work with Jason Rojas on this. Mr. Majority Leader?
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the kind words of the Speaker, but a bill of this magnitude, a bill of this complexity, it's bigger than any one legislator, it's bigger than any one caucus or any one branch of government, and we would not have gotten there without the work of both Senate and House leaders, without the governor's office, without the incredible staff, and they're standing over here to my left, who deserve an enormous amount of credit for making us look good as elected officials. The level of expertise that was needed to get this bill to where it is right now was really critically necessary. Not only the staff who work for both the legislative branch and the executive branch, but certainly a lot of the advocates out there who were busy informing us about the process, who understood what happened in other states perhaps better than any of us could have as elected officials. So this is just a really great effort. And now we turn to implementation, but we also turn to communicating to the public about what's in this bill. And I think the other partners in this are all the people who are sitting in front of me here. Members of the media who are out there already explaining what the bill is, what it does, what it doesn't do. So there's a lot more work for us to be done. We're going to be working on it for years, but at least in the short term, let's work together to inform the public about what this bill is, what the goals of it were, and what the really good product that came out of this legislative session in getting this bill passed. I think it'll be the most comprehensive and best cannabis legalization bill in the country. History will tell if that's true or not, but I feel confident in saying this right now. This is the best bill in the country, and it's going to move us in a direction of ensuring that we provide a well-regulated marketplace for adult-use cannabis, for adults who want to participate in that kind of activity. So, again, I just want to thank everybody who was involved in that, and a really proud moment for me as a legislator to work with my colleagues on getting this bill to the governor's desk, ready for his signature. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Majority Leader. It's now my privilege to introduce Representative Steve Staffstrom, who is the co-chair of the Judiciary Committee. Representative.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to certainly all of my legislative colleagues and certainly to the governor and lieutenant governor for their leadership on this. Connecticut is a state that rightly over the last decade has really prided itself on being at the forefront of criminal justice reform issues. Being the 19th or 20th state to legalize recreational cannabis was, in my mind, a blight spot on that record that we have of taking a leading role on criminal justice reform and recognizing that this is a drug that is less addictive and less harmful to the body than several others which we regulate, including tobacco and alcohol. Recognizing the need to finally erase old cannabis convictions, I think, was something that was long overdue on this state. And so I'm proud as we sit here and we talk about a historical session, certainly in a number of respects, and not the least of which was on criminal justice reform issues, that at the top of that list is finally getting legalization done and finally making sure we join that group of states that recognizes this is a drug that can be and should be safely regulated, and I think that's what we've accomplished in this bill. And certainly I want to particularly thank my co-chair and partner in crime reform, Senator Winfield, for all of his efforts as well on this. So.
Good one. Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I introduce this next leader, there are two characteristics that come to mind. One is perseverance and one is tenacity, and I think I know a little bit about both of those two things, and I see both of those two things in Senator Gary Winfield. Senator.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. You know, it's interesting. I almost didn't make it today, but then I said to myself, you know, you did that bill 3 times. You should be at that bill signing. It did get shorter every time. Listen, I want to thank the governor for making this an issue of his during the session, my leadership, the leadership in the House, my co-chair, Representative Rojas, who together we helped to kind of shepherd the legislators who were working on this bill. I want to thank those legislators, Senator McCrory, Representative Juan Candelaria, and Representative Robin Porter. And at the heart of what this was for us was not just we're going to legalize this drug and go out and make some money from it. I hear what people are saying, but that wasn't what this was about for us. This was about the war on drugs that the Lieutenant Governor talked about that started many years ago. And we can talk about 50 years ago, but we can go back even further than that. And the things that have happened under the war on drugs are that we have targeted certain communities. The things that have happened under the war on drugs is that we've existed under a legal scheme where we have laws that are just not just. And I think what the state of Connecticut did by focusing on that, along with all of the other things that come from legalizing cannabis, is to deal with the issues of the past. The Judiciary Committee this year did have, along with the whole body, an amazing year. Now the problem I have is people are asking, what are you going to do next year? But we'll come up, we will come up with something, we always do. But what makes it really amazing is not the number of bills we passed or the fact that this was first or second or 19th. What makes it amazing is that incorporated into what we did was thinking about not only where we're going, but where we've been, and making sure that we deal with the things that impact communities because of where we've been. So I want to thank everybody for being here today and supporting us and watching us do this bill over and over again. I think it is one of the most important things we did this session, but what's most important is that we didn't just talk about equity, but that we built it in. Thank you.
Thank you. So there were 2 committees that really focused on this legislation. One was the Judiciary Committee, but the other was the General Law Committee. So it's my pleasure to introduce Representative Mike D'Agostino, who leads that committee.
I don't have much to add than what my colleagues have said. Just keep in mind 2 things, as maybe you're right about this. Until this year, every other state that did this did it via referendum. They put it out to vote. I have no doubt if we had done that in Connecticut, if we could have done that in Connecticut, it would have passed 2 years ago. But we've got a legislative process here that we went through. In many respects, that was a good thing because we were able to develop this bill over years and then finalize it in the last few months. The other thing to keep in mind is we've got the benefit of a 10-year-old nation-leading medical marijuana program in Connecticut. And we've built this program on the back of that, on the back of those regulations. So we've had that experience as well. Those 2 things, those 2 pieces of this puzzle, as the majority leader said, make this the best piece of cannabis legalization legislation in the country. I want to thank our legislative leaders for the support throughout the years in passing this legislation, and thank the governor and lieutenant governor for their support as well. Thank you.
So it often takes quite a while to make good things happen. The governor and I talked about this issue a lot during our campaign when we ran in 2018, and it's a proud moment that I get to introduce Governor Lamont to talk about this important legislation and then for us to sign it. So, Governor, it took us 4 years, but the more of it, here it is.
Hey, first of all, let me just say, the last 100 times I was in this room, I would generally be sitting there by myself. Mac was over there, a couple guys from CTN, and one big camera. So it's kind of nice to see you. Secondly, you've been working on this for a long time. Susan and I were talking about this, and as Matt said, you have to work hard to get the yes. There's 100 different roads that make it easy to vote no, and there's one road that gets to yes. And Matt and Marty, you got us to yes, and it makes a big difference. Everybody's thanking people. I can tell you that Mohit and Patrick and Jonathan put in many, many hours to get this done. And Gary, 3 times the charm, man. 3 times the charm. It was a really important thing to do. It's an important thing to do on a number of fronts. Number one, in terms of equity and social justice, I love the fact that this is an equity fund. It's going to give folks who otherwise sometimes don't have access to capital, the capital they need to start up their own business, focused on the most distressed communities, those communities that were hardest hit by the war on drugs, making up for some lost time there. All of us here in public office place a premium upon public health, more so than ever after this last year, and public safety. I think this is a bill that prioritizes that, make sure that we can do this in a safely regulated way. I think it is a model for the rest of the nation. We've had a chance to learn from others, and I think we've got it right here in the state of Connecticut. Maybe we weren't the first, but we're the first, I think, to show that we can get it right and what that means for people going forward. So it's been a long time coming. As you heard, a lot of bills have been pending around here for some time. We got a lot of them passed this year. I thank each and every one of you. We all had to make some compromises along the way, but that's what good government's all about. I think the state is better off for the work you guys did over the last, this legislative session. Let's sign the bill.
Yeah, let's sign. Okay.
He gives you a pen. Get a pen.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to invite all of our leaders back up, and we want to thank all of our media partners for coming today, and the governor and all of our great leaders will take questions once they finish getting their photos taken. All right. All right, any questions from the media?